August 27th, 1953. New York City, Radio City Music Hall. The kind of premiere where flashbulbs explode like small stars and everyone is dressed in their most expensive attempt at elegance. Roman Holiday is opening. Paramount's romantic comedy starring Gregory Peck and an unknown girl named Audrey Hepburn. The studio is nervous. They've bet everything on this unknown, this gamble, this girl. She arrives in a white floral Givenchy dress, 24 years old, so thin the dress seems to float around her rather than rest on her body. She moves differently than other actresses. Not the practiced glide of someone trained in Hollywood. Something else. Ballet training mixed with wartime caution. Grace earned through survival rather than purchased through lessons. The crowd doesn't quite know what to make of her. She isn't conventionally beautiful by 1950s standards. Too thin. Eyebrows too thick. Nose too unusual. Neck too long. All angles and bones and eyes that seem too large for her face. She looks like a fawn that has wandered onto a red carpet by mistake and is trying very hard to pretend this is normal. Inside the theater, she sits somewhere in the middle, not the front row. She doesn't feel entitled to the front row. The film begins, and there she is on screen, 50 feet tall, playing a princess who runs away from her royal duties to experience real life for one day in Rome. The audience watches, starts to respond. Laughter in the right places, silence in the tender moments. By the end, a standing ovation. People are crying, not sad crying, the kind that happens when something reaches you, in a place you didn't know needed reaching. She will win the Oscar for this performance. She will become one of the most famous women in the world. She will define elegance for a generation. She will become synonymous with grace and style, and with a kind of luminous beauty that feels both accessible and unreachable. She will become a princess in the public imagination, which is ironic, because she has spent most of her life trying to escape the performance of being anything other than herself. So settle in, get cozy, because we're going back to the beginning, back to the Netherlands during the war, back to a girl named Audrey Kathleen Rustin, who learned very early that survival required performance, and that grace was something you developed to hide how broken you were inside. This is the story of how hunger became elegance, how trauma became poise, how a girl who never wanted to be looked at became impossible to look away from. Chapter 1. The War. Arnhem, Netherlands, May 1940. Audrey Kathleen Rustin is 11 years old when the Germans invade. Her mother is a Dutch baroness. Her father is a British businessman who left the family years earlier and joined the British Union of Fascists, which tells you something about his judgment. Audrey has been living mostly in England at boarding school, but she is in the Netherlands visiting when the war begins. She gets stuck there for 5 years, the worst 5 years, the hungry years. The early occupation isn't catastrophic yet. There are rules and restrictions and the constant presence of soldiers, but people adapt the way people always do. They find routines within the limitations. They make the abnormal normal, because the alternative is to live in constant terror, which is exhausting and unsustainable. Audrey's mother enrolls her in the Arnhem Conservatory, ballet lessons. Audrey has been dancing since she is 5. She has natural ability, the kind of line and extension that can't be taught. The conservatory gives her structure, purpose, a reason to be disciplined when everything else is chaos. She is good at ballet, really good. Her body is built for it, long limbs, natural turnout, the flexibility and strength that come from starting young. But more than technique, she has something else. Musicality. The ability to hear music and translate it into movement in a way that feels inevitable. Like this is what the music wanted all along. Her teachers notice. They start giving her more attention and more opportunities. In another timeline, one without a war, she might have become a prima ballerina. But this isn't that timeline. By 1944, everything is worse. The Netherlands has been under occupation for 4 years. The initial hope that it might be brief has long since evaporated. The Allies are making progress elsewhere, but they haven't reached the Netherlands yet. Food is increasingly scarce. The Germans are taking everything: supplies, resources, people. Jewish neighbors who were there one day are gone the next. Audrey's mother is hiding people in their home. Extraordinarily dangerous. If discovered, everyone will be shot. But what else can you do? Watch people be taken away? Pretend you didn't notice? Some people can do that, but Audrey's mother couldn't. Audrey dances in secret performances, small shows to raise money for the resistance. You can't advertise. You can't sell tickets publicly. Word spreads quietly. People gather in someone's large room or in a warehouse. No sets, minimal lighting, whatever pianist is available. Audrey dances, performs entire programs. The audience watches in silence because applause is too risky. Afterward, they leave money. Not much. Nobody had much, but enough to help buy food for people in hiding, or forge documents, or cover whatever the resistance needed that week. She was basically a child and dancing to save lives. Think about that. The pressure, the knowledge that your performance isn't just entertainment, but survival for people you will never meet. Most teenagers worry about whether someone likes them. Audrey worried about whether her dancing is convincing enough to pull money from people who barely have any in service of keeping strangers alive. In September 1944, the Allies attempt Operation Market Garden, an ambitious plan to capture a series of bridges across the Netherlands and push into Germany, ending the war by Christmas. It is bold, it is risky, and it fails. Arnhem is the bridge too far, the one they can't hold. The battle lasts 9 days of intense urban combat. Audrey and her family hide in a cellar while the city is destroyed above them. You can hear the fighting, the explosions, buildings collapsing, screaming. British paratroopers fight house to house against German forces. Civilians are caught in between, trying to survive in basements and cellars, waiting for it to end. When it is over, the Allies have retreated. They got close. They almost succeeded. Almost doesn't win wars. The Germans are furious. Arnhem has been a battleground. The city is damaged. The Dutch supported the Allied attempt. The reprisals are severe and systematic. The Hongerwinter begins in November 1944 and lasts until liberation in May 1945. The Germans block food supplies to punish the Dutch for supporting the Allies and for the railway strike that disrupted their logistics. The punishment is starvation, deliberate, calculated. Between 20 and 25,000 Dutch civilians die, most of them in the West, in the cities. Arnhem suffers along with Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague. All the major population centers are cut off. People eat tulip bulbs. The famous Dutch tulips become food. They eat sugar beets, make soup from grass and nettles, boil leather to extract whatever nutrition might be there. There isn't any, but hunger makes you try impossible things. Audrey's family has almost nothing. They survive on what they can scavenge or trade. Her mother trades family heirlooms for food, jewelry for a loaf of bread, a painting for some potatoes. Everything of value is slowly converted into calories. It still isn't enough. It is never enough. Audrey is 15, and her body is consuming itself. The ballet muscles she has built so carefully are broken down for energy. Her menstrual cycle stops. Her hair starts falling out. She develops acute anemia, jaundice that turns her skin yellow, edema that makes her legs and feet swell with retained fluid. She keeps dancing when she can, in secret, in spaces that aren't being watched. The performances for the resistance have to stop. They are too dangerous now. But she dances alone, in whatever space is available. Not full routines, just movements, exercises, keeping her body trained even as it is starving. This might be madness or discipline or both. It's hard to tell when you are that hungry. She sees people die in the streets, sees bodies left there because there is no energy to move them, nowhere to bury them, and the frozen ground is too hard anyway. She sees public executions. The Germans shoot people in squares as warnings. Resistance members, Jews who have been hiding, anyone who has broken the increasingly arbitrary rules. You can't look away. Showing emotion is dangerous. So she watches and develops the ability to be present and absent at the same time. To see horror without fully processing it, because processing requires energy she doesn't have, and because reaction can get you killed. The war ends on May 5th, 1945. The Canadians arrive. They bring food, medical supplies, hope. Audrey is 16 years old. She weighs barely 90 pounds. Her growth has been stunted. She will never be as tall as her genetics promised. The starvation has damaged her metabolism permanently. She will struggle with her weight for the rest of her life, not because of vanity, but because her body learned during the Hongerwinter that food might disappear at any moment and therefore every calorie should be stored. Her relationship with food will always be complicated. How could it not be? She survived. That is the important thing. But survival comes with costs that aren't immediately visible. The trauma settles into her body, the hypervigilance, the sense that safety is temporary, and disaster is always one bad decision away. These aren't things you simply get over. You adapt. You build a life that accounts for the hollow place in your center where security should be. Chapter 2. Dancing Towards Something. After the war, Audrey's mother moves them briefly to Amsterdam, then to London in 1948. England feels safer, farther from the memories, farther from the Netherlands, and everything that happened there. They can start over, rebuild, pretend the war is behind them, even though it isn't, not in the ways that matter. Audrey is 19 and still wants to dance. The war interrupted her training, but it didn't kill the dream. Ballet has been the one constant through everything. The thing that made sense when nothing else did. The discipline, the structure, the beauty of it. She danced in secret during the war, kept training even while starving, held on to this dream when she had nothing else to hold on to. She enrolls in Ballet Rambert, a prestigious school in London. Marie Rambert herself teaches there, a legend, one of the great pedagogues of ballet. She trained with Diaghilev, worked with Nijinsky. Her school is rigorous, demanding, unforgiving of anything less than excellent. This is what Audrey wants. Real training, professional standards, a path forward. The other dancers are younger, 16, 17, already at a level Audrey should have been at if the war hadn't happened. They have trained consistently since childhood. No gaps, no starvation periods where their bodies consume muscle instead of building it. They have the foundation Audrey is missing. The years she lost aren't retrievable. You can't get them back. You can't undo the damage of malnutrition during crucial developmental years. Audrey works harder than anyone. She lost years to the war and has to catch up somehow. She has to prove she belongs. Her technique is strong in some ways. Her musicality is exceptional. She can interpret choreography beautifully. She can make movement look inevitable and spontaneous, even when it is carefully rehearsed. But there are problems, several of them. Problems that aren't her fault, but exist anyway. She is too tall for most male dancers of the period. 5'7" isn't enormous, but it is tall enough to create partnering difficulties. Male dancers average 5'8", 5'9". Being the same height or taller creates visual problems in classical ballet. The aesthetics demand that the man appear dominant, protective, larger. Audrey's height limits her partnering options. That limits the roles she can be cast in. Her feet aren't as strong as they should be. The malnutrition during the war affected her bone development. Her ankles are weaker, her arches less defined. Point work is harder than it should be for someone with her natural line and extension. She can do it, she can get through class, but it takes more effort and causes more pain than it does for dancers whose bodies develop normally. And most significantly, she started too late. Or rather, her training was interrupted at exactly the wrong time. Prima ballerinas are usually identified by 12 or 13, the ones with real potential, the future stars. They are pulled into intensive training, given solo opportunities, developed carefully. Audrey is 19 and playing catch-up. She was good at 10, 11, might have been great if the war hadn't happened. But it did happen, and the gap in her training is a canyon she can't cross. Marie Rambert is brutally honest with her. They meet in Rambert's office after class one day. Private, direct. "You're very good," Rambert says. "You have talent, real talent. You could have a career in the Corps. You could dance professionally, get hired by a company, perform in productions. But prima ballerina, the lead roles, the career you're imagining, that ship has sailed. The war took that from you. Not your fault. But fault doesn't matter. Reality does. You can keep dancing. But you need to adjust your expectations. Find a different dream." It is devastating in ways that are hard to articulate. Ballet has been the thing, the goal, the reason to keep going when everything else was terrible. And now someone she respects is telling her it isn't possible. Not because she isn't talented, but because circumstances beyond her control have made it impossible. The war took her country, her health, her adolescence, and now she learns it has also taken her future, the thing she has been working toward, the thing that sustained her through the Hongerwinter and the occupation and the fear. Gone. Stolen by something that ended 3 years ago and is apparently still taking things from her. She keeps dancing, but the joy is different now. Complicated. She knows where the ceiling is. Corpse work. Background. Never the lead. Never the spotlight. Never the thing she wanted. She shows up to class, does the exercises, performs in student productions, but something has shifted. The dream has collapsed, and she doesn't know what comes next. She starts taking other work to pay the bills. Modeling, bit parts in plays. She is photogenic in an unusual way. The camera finds her interesting, even when she is just standing still. Photographers notice, start requesting her. She doesn't think much of it. This is just money, just survival. The real goal is still ballet, even though the real goal is becoming increasingly hypothetical. In 1951, she is cast in a small part in a film being shot in Monte Carlo, a French educational film about proper behavior. She has one line, barely visible, but the production attracts other filmmakers who are shooting in the same area. One of them is a novelist named Colette, the author of Gigi. She sees Audrey and something clicks. This is Gigi, she thinks. This girl, this presence. The combination of innocence and knowing, The wide eyes and the old soul. This is the girl. Colette insists Audrey be cast in the Broadway adaptation of Gigi. The producers are skeptical. Audrey has no real acting experience. Her English is good but accented. She is unknown. But Colette is adamant, and Colette is Colette. You don't argue with Colette. Audrey goes to New York, plays Gigi on Broadway, is terrified the entire time. She has no training for this, no technique to fall back on. Just instinct, ballet discipline, and the ability to pretend she knows what she is doing. The reviews are good. Not rapturous, but good enough. She is noticed. Talent scouts come. Offers start arriving. Hollywood is interested. She doesn't particularly want Hollywood. She doesn't dream of being a movie star the way some people do. But she needs work. Needs money. Her mother needs support, and the ballet dream is dead, which means she needs a different dream. Or at least a different way to pay rent. So she says yes. Yes to screen tests. Yes to meetings. Yes to the strange machinery of Hollywood. Because saying no requires resources she doesn't have. Chapter 3. Roman Holiday. William Wyler is directing Roman Holiday, a romantic comedy about a princess who escapes her handlers for one day in Rome and falls in love with an American journalist. It is designed as a vehicle for Gregory Peck, who is already a major star. The princess role matters, but the story is really about Peck's character choosing honor over the story that could make his career. Paramount tests hundreds of actresses for the princess. Literally hundreds. Elizabeth Taylor is considered. Jean Simmons. Every young actress in Hollywood wants it. Wyler can't find what he is looking for. They all seem too American, too polished, too aware of their own beauty. He needs someone who can seem genuinely royal and genuinely naive, and able to transform from formal princess to delighted tourist without the change feeling performed. Someone suggests Audrey Hepburn, the girl from Gigi. Wyler is skeptical, but he agrees to meet her. She comes to the office, 22 years old, terrified, trying not to show it. They talk. She is articulate, well-mannered, speaks 4 languages. She has that quality of seeming genuinely interested in what you are saying instead of waiting for her turn to speak. Wyler likes her, but he isn't convinced. He needs to see her on camera. They do a screen test, set up a scene. Audrey performs it. Does a good job. Wyler says thank you, we'll be in touch, the usual polite dismissal, but he doesn't stop the camera. He keeps it rolling. He wants to see her when she thinks she isn't being filmed. He watches how she relaxes, how her face changes, how she moves when she isn't performing. The footage is remarkable. The unguarded Audrey is more interesting than the performing Audrey. She has something the camera loves: authenticity, vulnerability, a quality of being simultaneously strong and fragile. Wyler casts her. The studio is nervous. Banking that much on an unknown for the second lead feels risky. But Wyler insists. And Wyler is William Wyler. 3 Oscars, dozens of nominations. You trust his instincts, even when you don't understand them. Filming begins in Rome in the summer of 1952. Audrey is overwhelmed. She has never been the lead in anything like this. She has never been responsible for a film's success or failure. She has never worked with this level of talent. Gregory Peck is one of the biggest stars in the world. William Wyler is a legend. The crew is seasoned and confident. And here's Audrey, 23 years old, trying to figure out how to be a movie star, when 6 months earlier she was doing bit parts in London. Peck is kind from the start, generous in ways that aren't required. He has been where she is, more or less. He understands the terror of carrying a film. He makes sure her part is expanded during filming. He makes sure she receives equal billing above the title, something virtually unheard of for an unknown. Star billing is protected, negotiated, fought over. Peck gives up his exclusive top billing to share it with her. That means less money, less prestige, less of everything stars usually fight to keep. He does it because he believes in her, because he sees what Wyler sees, that she is special. He plays scenes in ways that support her rather than overwhelm her. If Audrey struggles with a moment, he adjusts his performance to give her something to lean on, something to react to, something that makes it easier. This is the difference between a good actor and a generous one. Good actors deliver their lines well. Generous actors make everyone around them better. The Vespa scene, the two of them riding through Rome on a scooter, Audrey behind Peck, arms around his waist, laughing. Pure joy captured on film. It isn't in the script originally. Wyler sees them fooling around between takes, riding the scooter that is a prop, and tells them to do it for real. For the camera. The spontaneity is what makes it work. Audrey's laugh is genuine. Her delight is genuine. For those few minutes, she isn't acting. She is just a girl on a Vespa in Rome having the time of her life. The war is 8 years behind her. She is alive, and in Rome, and the sun is shining, and everything feels possible. The Mouth of Truth scene is another moment that transcends the script. Peck improvises. He sticks his hand into the ancient Roman sculpture and pretends it has been bitten off. Audrey's shocked reaction is real. He doesn't tell her he is going to do it. Her scream is genuine terror, followed immediately by genuine relief and laughter. Wyler keeps it in. This is what makes Roman Holiday special. These moments of real emotion, real connection, real playfulness, captured between two actors who trust each other. The film wraps in September 1952. Audrey goes back to London. She doesn't know what will happen next. She has done her best. She hopes it is good enough. She hopes Wyler's gamble on her will pay off. But hope is about all she has, because certainty is rarely available when you are 23 and have stumbled into something you aren't entirely sure you deserve. Chapter 4. The Icon. Roman Holiday premieres in August 1953. The reaction is immediate and overwhelming. Critics love it, audiences love it, and specifically, they love Audrey. She isn't like other actresses. She isn't trying to be glamorous in the traditional sense. She is something else. Gamine, elfin, a new kind of beauty that feels modern and accessible and completely original. The studio publicity machine goes into overdrive. Photo shoots, interviews, magazine covers. Every publication wants her. Every photographer wants to shoot her. She is the new thing, the fresh face, the unexpected star. Audrey is uncomfortable with all of it from the start. She doesn't like being looked at. She doesn't like talking about herself. The attention feels intrusive, too much, too intense. She spent the war trying to be invisible, trying not to be noticed. Being noticed meant danger. That instinct doesn't disappear just because the context changes. But this is the job now. Being looked at is the job. Being Audrey Hepburn is the job, so she does it. She develops a persona that is polite and gracious and gives them nothing real. She smiles in the right places. She answers questions with practiced ease. She reveals nothing of substance. Another performance. Another survival strategy. The same skills that helped her survive the war now help her survive fame. She meets Hubert de Givenchy in 1953. The French designer, young, ambitious, brilliant. He has been told Katharine Hepburn is coming to his atelier and is excited. Hepburn is a star, a name, someone worth dressing. Instead, Audrey Hepburn shows up. He has never heard of her. He is slightly disappointed. Then he looks at her. The neck. the shoulders, the way she carries herself, the proportions. She is a designer's dream. Clothes will look on her the way they look in sketches. Perfect, architectural, alive. They become collaborators for life. He designs for her. She wears his clothes, both on screen and off. The relationship is creative and personal. He understands her. He understands that she wants elegance without fuss, simplicity without plainness, clothes that enhance rather than overwhelm. The black dress from Breakfast at Tiffany's will become one of the most iconic garments in film history. But it isn't just the dress. It is how she wears it. The posture from ballet training, the grace earned through survival, the way she makes expensive simplicity seem like the only thing worth aspiring to. She isn't trying to be sexy in the traditional sense. She isn't trying to be alluring in the bombshell way Marilyn Monroe perfected. She isn't selling curves or cleavage or spectacle. She is something else, elegant, refined, almost safe, a different kind of aspiration. You can imagine wearing those clothes, having that haircut, carrying yourself that way. The fantasy feels reachable in a way Monroe's doesn't. Monroe is a goddess, Audrey is a princess, one you can imagine being. The Oscar comes in March 1954. Best Actress for Roman Holiday. She is 24 years old. She gives a brief, grateful speech. She doesn't cry. She doesn't gush. She thanks the necessary people and sits down. The brevity is refreshing. Most winners go on forever. Audrey understands that less is more. Or maybe she just wants to get off the stage as quickly as possible. It is hard to say which. More films follow. Sabrina, opposite Humphrey Bogart and William Holden. She holds her own against two of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Bogart is initially skeptical. He thinks she is too young, too inexperienced. But she wins him over. How could she not? She is professional, prepared, kind, and talented in ways that become more obvious the longer you work with her. She listens, she reacts. She makes the other actors better by being fully present. War and Peace in 1956, playing Natasha Rostova. A prestige picture. She is good in it, though the film itself is bloated and struggles under its own ambition. Funny Face in 1957 with Fred Astaire. She gets to dance. The ballet training is finally useful for something besides posture. Love in the Afternoon, opposite Gary Cooper. Film after film, success after success. By her late 20s, she is one of the biggest stars in the world. Everyone wants to work with her. Every designer wants to dress her. Every photographer wants to shoot her. But she is tired. The performance of being Audrey Hepburn is exhausting. The travel, the publicity, the constant scrutiny, the expectation that she be gracious and lovely and elegant at all times. She is those things naturally, to an extent. But having to be them professionally, having to perform them, is different. That is work. She marries Mel Ferrer in 1954, an actor and director, older, established. She wants stability. She wants a partner. She wants something that feels like normalcy. The marriage is complicated. Ferrer has his own career and his own ego. Audrey is becoming more famous than he is. This creates tension. The kind of tension that is hard to acknowledge because acknowledging it makes it real. She has her first child, Sean, in 1960. The pregnancy is difficult. She has had multiple miscarriages before. The starvation during the war damaged her reproductive system. Carrying a baby to term is precarious, but Sean is born healthy. She is 30 years old, and motherhood changes something. It makes her question what she is doing with her life. It makes her wonder if the performance is worth it. Chapter 5. Performing for no one. Breakfast at Tiffany's arrives in 1961. It is the adaptation of Truman Capote's novella, Holly Golightly, the party girl, the escort essentially, though the film softens that considerably. Capote wanted Marilyn Monroe. The studio chose Audrey. Capote was furious. Audrey was all wrong for it, he said. Too elegant, too refined. Holly was supposed to be rough around the edges, vulgar. Audrey could not do vulgar if she tried. He was right and also wrong. Audrey's Holly is different from Capote's Holly. Softer, more sympathetic, less sharp, but she makes it work. She makes Holly into someone you root for instead of someone you only observe from a distance. The film is a massive success. The song Moon River becomes inseparable from her. The image of Audrey in the black dress, pearls, cigarette holder, standing at the Tiffany's window becomes one of the most reproduced images in cinema. But Holly Golightly is performing too. Performing sophistication while barely surviving. Pretending to be something she is not, because the reality is not acceptable. Audrey understands that better than anyone. She has been performing since she was 14. Dancing for the resistance, smiling for photographers, being gracious in interviews, playing the role of Audrey Hepburn while the real Audrey is somewhere else entirely, watching and waiting for permission to be herself. The 1960s are her peak. My Fair Lady in 1964 playing Eliza Doolittle, the Cockney flower girl who was transformed into a lady. Another story about becoming something you are not. Another story about performance. They dub her singing voice. They use Marnie Nixon instead. Audrey is hurt by this. She worked hard on the songs, but the studio decides her voice is not strong enough. They replace it without telling her until afterward. This is what happens when you are a commodity. You do not get to control your own voice. By the mid-1960s, she is exhausted, tired of the work, tired of the performance, tired of being looked at and measured and praised and criticized. She has made nearly 20 films in 12 years. She is wealthy, famous, successful by every external measure, and still deeply unhappy. Her marriage to Mel Ferrer is ending. They divorce in 1968. She is 39 years old. It feels like she has been performing for 25 years straight. Since the Hongerwinter, since the secret ballet performances, since forever. And she wants to stop. She wants to be a person instead of an image. She wants to be a mother instead of an icon. She marries Andrea Dotti in 1969, an Italian psychiatrist. She has another son, Luca, in 1970. She is 40. This pregnancy is even more difficult than the first. But Luca is born healthy. She begins to step away. She moves to Switzerland. She lives quietly. She makes very few films, and the ones she does make are careful choices. Robin and Marion in 1976 with Sean Connery. They Wait in the Dark had been in 1967. After that, almost nothing for years. The world thinks she is crazy, walking away from Hollywood at 40, at the height of her fame, at the moment when she could have had almost anything. But she does not want what Hollywood is offering. She wants privacy. She wants time with her children. She wants to stop being Audrey Hepburn for a while and just be Audrey Dotti. Just be a mother. Just be a wife. Just be a person who is not performing. Chapter 6. More Than Hollywood. The second marriage does not last. Andrea Dotti has affairs. He is less interested in the quiet life Audrey wants. They divorce in 1982. She is 53. Twice divorced with 2 grown sons. She's living in Switzerland and mostly retired. And then UNICEF calls. She has been involved with UNICEF since the late 1950s. Small things at first, donations, occasional appearances at fundraisers, using her name to bring attention. but it has always felt peripheral, something she does on the side while her real life is making films and raising children. In 1988, they asked her to become a Goodwill ambassador, to travel, to visit children in developing countries, to bring attention to their work in a sustained, serious way. Not just photo opportunities, real involvement, real commitment. She says yes immediately. This is something real, something that matters, something that is not about her or her image or selling anything. This is about helping children who are in the same position she once was, starving, forgotten, waiting for someone to notice. Someone noticed her in 1945. The Canadians brought food and supplies and saved her life, along with thousands of others. Now she can be the one who notices, the one who brings attention, the one who helps save lives. She travels to Ethiopia in 1988. The famine there is catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands dead, millions more at risk. She visits feeding centers, hospitals, orphanages. She sees children dying of starvation. She sees children who look the way she looked in 1945. Skeletal, hollow-eyed, barely alive. The shock of recognition. This was her. This was what she had been. And here she is, 59 years old and famous and wealthy, looking at herself at 15. The cameras follow. That is the point. Her fame is the tool. She brings media attention to places that would otherwise be ignored. Wars and famines in Africa do not make American news unless there is a hook. Audrey Hepburn is the hook. The photographers want pictures of her. Fine. She gives them pictures. But the pictures are of her holding dying children, of her sitting in feeding centers, of her crying at the suffering. She uses her image for something that matters. Sudan comes next, then Bangladesh, Vietnam, Central America. She goes everywhere UNICEF sends her. The travel is exhausting, the heat is unbearable, the conditions are primitive. She is in her 60s by then and not in perfect health. The malnutrition from the war created problems that never fully went away. Her digestion is sensitive, her energy is limited, but she keeps going. She keeps visiting. She keeps bearing witness. She gives speeches to the United Nations, testifies before Congress, uses her fame to lobby for funding, for attention, for action. She is not a politician. She is not trained in diplomacy or policy, but she does not need to be. She speaks from experience, from memory, from the knowledge of what hunger feels like, from the knowledge of what it is like to be a child the world has forgotten. Lawmakers listen in a way they do not listen to statistics or policy papers. Audrey Hepburn telling you about starving children is different from a bureaucrat telling you the same thing. The work is hard emotionally as well as physically. She sees children dying and is powerless to save them all. She can only bring attention. She can only hope that attention turns into aid, into action, into lives saved. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it does not. The not knowing is painful. But she keeps going. She keeps making the trips. She keeps using her fame. Between 1988 and 1992, she makes more than 50 trips. She visits more than a dozen countries. She brings attention to emergencies most people never hear about. She lobbies for funding. She advocates for children. She uses her platform for something beyond selling tickets or clothes or perfume. She uses it to save lives, thousands of them, tens of thousands, through the program she helps fund and promote. In 1992, she is diagnosed with appendiceal cancer. It is rare, aggressive. She has surgery. But the cancer has already spread. The prognosis is not good. She goes home to Switzerland. She spends time with her sons, with her partner, Robert Wolders. She makes peace with things. She has lived 63 years. She has survived a war. She has become famous beyond imagining. She has raised 2 sons. She has helped thousands of children through UNICEF. She has done enough. She dies on January 20th, 1993. At home, surrounded by family, the world mourns, but the mourning feels different than it did for Monroe or Garland. There is sadness, but there is also gratitude. She lived fully. She made choices that prioritized life over image. She used her platform for good. She left on her own terms, more or less. She was the kind of person worth admiring for reasons beyond beauty. And that is where we leave her. Audrey Hepburn, 24 years old, standing in Radio City Music Hall, watching herself on screen as a princess who runs away. She does not know yet that she will spend the rest of her life running from the very thing that night makes her. Not running from fame exactly, but from the performance of being the person fame requires her to be. What Audrey gives us is a different template for grace. Before her, elegance was about perfection, about being untouchable, about being so polished you seem almost unreal. Audrey's elegance is different. It comes from fragility, from the knowledge that beautiful things can be broken, from the understanding that grace is something you earn through survival, not something you are born with. She makes it acceptable to be thin and angular and unusual. She makes it desirable. She redefines what beautiful can mean. Every actress who is told she is not pretty enough, or not conventional enough, or not traditionally beautiful, owes something to Audrey. She proves that unusual can be iconic, that different can be aspirational. You do not have to look like Rita Hayworth or Marilyn Monroe to be a movie star. You can look like yourself, and that can be enough. The little black dress becomes a kind of uniform, simple, elegant, accessible. Before breakfast at Tiffany's, elegance meant elaborate. It meant fussy. It meant trying too hard. Audrey shows that less can be more, that simplicity has its own kind of sophistication. Every woman who chooses the simple black dress over something more complicated is making a choice Audrey helped make possible. But what matters more than fashion, more than beauty, more than any of the surface things, is this. Audrey chose life, over and over again. She survives a war that kills millions. She survives starvation that damages her permanently. She survives the ballet dream dying. She survives fame she never wanted. She survives 2 marriages, and each time she chose to keep going, to find meaning, to help where she can, to be more than just beautiful. The UNICEF work is the legacy that matters most. The films are lovely. The fashion is iconic. But the UNICEF work is real. She helps children who are dying. She uses her fame to bring attention to suffering most people ignore. She goes to places most celebrities will not go. She sees things most people cannot bear to see. And she does it because she remembers being a starving child. She remembers what it feels like to be forgotten, and she refuses to forget. She speaks 5 languages: English, Dutch, French, Italian, Spanish. She uses all of them in her UNICEF work. She can talk to children in their own language. She can make them feel seen. She does not just show up and smile. She engages. She listens. She cares. She makes it matter. There is something especially powerful about a woman who has told her whole career that her value is in how she looks, choosing to spend her final years focused on substance, on helping, on using her platform for something beyond herself. That is a rebuke to everything Hollywood stands for. That is choosing humanity over image. That is being the person instead of playing the role. The accidental princess becomes a real one, not through marriage or title or performance, but through choosing to serve, through using privilege to help the powerless, through remembering where she comes from and staying connected to that memory instead of running from it. That is royalty. Her sons remember a mother who prioritized them, who left Hollywood to be present, who chose their childhoods over her career, who gave up roles and money and opportunities to be at school plays and dinners and ordinary moments. That is another kind of courage. Walking away from what everyone says you should want because you know what you actually need. She died young by modern standards, 63, but she lived several lives in those years. War survivor, icon, mother, humanitarian. And that is a legacy that matters. That is what we'll remember. And that concludes another episode of Hollywood Insomniac. Good night.